Howdy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Take my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, it's for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Dukes Show. It's hard sometimes when I got up early. I was like, I got plenty of time. I got, and then I went down a rabbit hole. And next thing you know, I was like, oh, I got it. You know what I'm talking about, right? TGIF. That's all I can say today. It's thank goodness it's Firearms Friday. End of the week, ready to jump into it. A couple of housekeeping measures. First and foremost, I want to remind you that tomorrow at 6 p.m. is the Great Gatsby Gala. There we go. That's what I was looking for. The Gatsby Gala benefiting the Kenai Fairgrounds up in Nilchik. And that is the dinner that's going to be kicking off. We talked with everybody yesterday. I'm going to be, I guess, doing some emceeing and the auctioning for the Outcry auction. So it should be fun. I'm hoping you guys are going to come out and visit with us tomorrow. So that's the first thing. Good thing to that. Congratulations, and I wanted to welcome a new member to the Common Sense Corps, although I think Dodie has been with us before, and maybe she's just renewing. But hey, Dodie is a brand new member to the Common Sense Corps, which helps support the show. Big thank you to all the Common Sense Corps members. It helps support the show. It puts, coffee in my cup and kid shoes on my kids' feet and all that kind of stuff. And it helps us when we're buying new equipment. And we outfitted the whole studio here a couple of years ago with the support of the Common Sense Corps after a couple of years of collecting and everything. And we were able to do a bunch of stuff in the studio with some new equipment to make things better. Because we are a low-budget radio show. And, with the help of you guys out there, we just can't say thank you enough to for your help and helping to sponsor the show. You essentially are sponsors of the show, and we appreciate that. If you want to become a member of the Common Sense Corps, you can just go to michaeldukeshow.com and click on Join the Corps at the top of the page, or go to patreon.com/Michael Dukes Show, patreon.com/Michael Dukes Show. And you can click, and for as little as $3 a day, you too can help a small child in the Dukes household. No, there are no more small children, but you know what I mean. All right. And it wasn't $3 a day. It's $3 a month. That's it. Okay. What do we got? I've got, there's a ton of different headlines that we can go over today. The biggest news is the discussion around the Supreme Court decision. The Supreme Court has upheld the ATF's ruling on the frame and receiver rule. This is the Vanderstock decision. Now, what's interesting is that this this decision was not made on Second Amendment grounds. And that is key to understanding what's going on with this decision. So we're going to get into this here in just a little bit. My initial knee-jerk reaction was distress, but now I'm not mollified, but well, there's some solutions that can come. So we're going to talk about that this morning. We're going to talk about it from a couple different perspectives. We're also going to talk about the lackadaisicalness. Well, that's a big word. Of the president's journey towards protecting the Second Amendment. Again, I'll say what I said last week and what I've said before is I'm still cautiously optimistic that the president is moving in the right direction on guns, but he really needs to grab the bull by the horns on this. And this decision, by the way, on Vanderstock, there's an opportunity for him here to show the colors and to do some things. So we want to discuss that as well. And David Codrea over at the War on Guns blog, who writes for many different publications, but most recently in the Firearms News, also has some concerns about, what's going on in the administration and asking for more. Like, come on, guys, let's get with the program kind of thing. So we're going to talk about that as well. We're also going to talk about the rule of three. And that's something that a couple people have commented on here in the last couple months, including one of our great listeners and one of the moderators in the chat room here, Brian, who had mentioned to me that we should really go over that more often because it's something that's important. And in my mind, it's something that I've talked about a lot, and so I think, well, we don't need to talk about that anymore. But there's always a new listeners or people who are new to the show that have probably never heard it. So we're going to talk about the rule of three today there as well. And so we're gonna work on that as well. And because it is Firearms Friday, and I suppose I should give a little bit of background here. Fridays are always the day that we talk about guns and firearms. I had to restrict myself to one day because otherwise it would bleed into almost probably most conversations throughout the week. And so we had many years ago, we decided to relegate firearms discussion to one day. And because I love alliteration, Firearms Friday was a perfect choice for that to happen. And the whole point of Firearms Friday is to demystify the firearm for somebody who is in the middle, right? I mean, I hate to break it to you folks, for those of you who are seriously 2A fanatics or pro-gun or everything else, this show is not for you. Although you may enjoy it, I certainly enjoy doing it, but technically the show is not for you. The show is for people who are not pro-gun, not anti-gun, but somewhere in the middle, who may have questions, who may have been quietly questioning their own gun alignment, their gun pronounness. I don't know what were they, questioning their own gun identity. Well, I thought I was pro-gun, but I thought I was anti-gun, but I thought I was, I don't know, whatever it is. If you thought that you were, I thought I was anti-gun, but now I'm questioning myself and I don't want anybody to know. I don't want anybody to, I shouldn't tell my teacher because then, oh no, my teacher will keep that from my parents. So they know that I could be anti, right? You know what I mean? Nobody wants to talk about this because for one, if your circle of friends or, if you're in an area where a lot of your cohorts and your sphere of influence and the folks you're exposed to are kind of anti-gun, but you're starting to question, you don't really have anybody to talk to, right? And a lot of people, of course, one of the things that we all hate as individuals and as people is we hate to feel stupid, although that's not necessarily a rational thing because we don't know what we don't know. That's one of my favorite of sayings and phrases is that I fully admit to myself that I don't know what I don't know. There are certain things, and I've had this conversation with everything from accountants to radio engineers. I don't know what I don't know. That's why I need your help, right? That's what I'm talking to people about. I've never really had a problem with that, admitting it, but many people have a problem, like they just don't want to appear ignorant. Ignorance is curable, by the way. Stupidity is forever. So don't be stupid. Admit that you're ignorant and get the information you need. It's never shameful to go and talk to somebody who is an expert, an acknowledged expert, not a supposed expert, not a self-proclaimed expert. Let's not get twisted here. Right? So there's nothing shameful about admitting that you don't know something about something and finding the information from somebody who does. And so, but it's hard sometimes, especially if you are just now, you're like, oh, and you walk into the local gun store or whatever, and there's a bunch of people sitting around the pot-bellied stove, picking their teeth and telling war stories or whatever, and you feel a little awkward. I don't want to ask a question. I don't want to appear stupid. That's what Firearms Friday is all about. We're here to try and answer your questions. Right? We need to answer your questions, and hopefully we can demystify the firearm, right? So that it's not some kind of mythical, because the news media and the television industry and the movies and the all the talking heads, they make it seem like it's some kind of mystical, it's a tool, folks, like anything else. And like you would treat any power tool that's plugged in and ready to go with great respect, like you would treat a table saw if you've never used a table saw, or a chainsaw or a skill saw. There's a lot of saws in there, but anything like that that could remove a limb or a digit or anything else, you treat it with respect, right? But there's nothing mystical about those things. Firearm is exactly the same way. Although, again, it's treated by many in various outlets as if it's some kind of, Johnny was such a good boy until he got a hold of that gun, and then Johnny became, you became, right? So, again, wow, I just did this whole wind up basically to tell you that the phone lines are open. That was what I guess I was leading up to that. It's Friday. So the phone lines are open, and there is no such thing as a dumb gun question. Phone number to call, 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864. So we're here to answer your questions. And so if you've been listening for a while or whatever, then, and you're like, I've been wanting to, there again, no, if I've answered the question a million times, I'll answer it again. I mean, if you're like, what end does the bullet come out? I will tell you, right? This is what it's all about. We're going to answer those questions. We're going to demystify the firearm. We're going to teach you about it. We're going to give you the rule of three. We're going to cover it. And you know what? I'll even tell you about the one time that I actually did make a difference on this show with Firearms Friday, because I've been doing the show for a long time. And in only one instance have I ever, in a confirmed case, have I ever converted somebody from anti-gun to gun-curious, leaning pro-gun? Only one acknowledged time has that ever happened. And that's made all the effort worth it, just the one person. And that's the one person that acknowledged it. Maybe there's more out there. I don't know. We'll have to see. But that and headlines and more is all coming up. Plus, Willie Waffle at the end of the show today. We're going to finish things up, but the phone lines are up. And you should be calling right now, asking silly gun questions, because I said there's no such thing as a dumb gun question. Somebody's going to be like, Where do I put the bullets? I just don't know what to do. I can't. All right. That's a redundant question, Bill. Bill wants to know, when you look at a firearms manual, is there a troubleshooting section? Dad joke. All right. We'll be back. We'll be back with more. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense. Liberty-based. Free thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
That is true, Rob. That is, I don't know. I'm sure there's a principle, like Parkinson's principle or, Robert's Law or some other thing out there that basically says if you make something idiot-proof, they'll just make a better idiot. That's what's going to happen. If you make something idiot-proof, hold my beer. They'll just make a better idiot. That is the 100% fact on that, my friend. 100% fact. That's what they'll do. All right, let me. I'm chugging along here. I'm making some changes on how the world works in the background over here. I'm just throwing this out here. I'm trying to make it happen. Let me get the. I'm scrolling through. There's a whole bunch of stuff here, and I found it. Okay. All right. How you guys doing? How are you doing? You ready to jump in and make this all happen? Ooh, that one's out of date. That one's out of date. Okay. There. You know what, Dukes? Just type in the search thing and there it is. All right, I fixed it. Okay. Yeah, Rob wins the internet for today. That is today's winner right there. Miguel says one can make a difference. Yeah, I mean, true. One person could make a difference if we change the mind of one person. Has it been worth all the pain and effort and everything else over the last 15 years? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I think it's good though. Definitely makes me feel good. Frank wants to know what the rule of three is. It single action, double action, or semi-auto with the rule of three? No, apparently I haven't done the rule of three in quite a while. If Frank doesn't know what I'm talking about, what do you guys think it is? When I say the rule of three, Brian can't answer this. What do you think? What do you think I mean when I'm talking about the rule of three? You tell me. I'll tell you whether or not you're right. Everybody gets a guess. When I talk about the rule of three, what am I talking about? I mean, I've only been talking about it for like 12 years, so I don't know. Maybe this is a quiz. Maybe you guys weren't paying attention. Maybe you need to stay after class. Okay. And now you all got quiet. Now I pressed you all on it, and you're like, what is he talking about? I don't want to look foolish if I don't know what the Debbie's like, Anthony, rule of three, center mass, one to the head equals dead. Two to the center, one to the head equals. That's the Mozambique drill. The Mozambique drill, two to the chest, one to the head, repeat and rinse as necessary. There you go. See, Bill gets it. Bill's been paying attention. Bill gets a gold star. Now, don't look at Bill's answer and copy it, okay? It's not what it's all about. All right. Well, I'm full of piss and vinegar this morning. I don't know why. I woke up. I'm dead tired. I'm a little bit under the weather, I think. I'm still trying to recover from being up for 36 hours during the whole thing, the ordeal to Fairbanks and the hot. Did I tell you guys about the whole poo parade that happened trying to get to Fairbanks? And Jeffrey immediately copies Bill. Good job, Jeffrey. Good job. Yeah, I think I'm still trying to recover from that. Quite honestly, I don't recover quite as I used to be able to stay up for days at a time and do work and, then sleep for 15 hours and then get up and do it again. And it just, my body says, whoa, dude, you're old. Stop. Anyway, it has been, that's interesting. Let's just get to it. I'm all over the place this morning and I don't even care. Let's get back to it. Jeffrey says.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
I'm giving the chat room a hard time this morning. You know what? It's Friday, baby. That's all I can say. It's Friday. Where were we before I went into? Oh, that's right. We were talking about converting people to the way of the gun, the church of the firearm, the gospel of John Moses Browning. That's what we were talking about. And it's funny, I've been doing this show for a long time and had been doing the show for quite a while when I did get that. When I finally discovered that I had, in fact, converted somebody. And I'll tell you that story here in just a bit. But what else are we going to cover this morning? Okay, we got some headlines. So I guess we should get to the headlines first. And then we'll talk about the rule of three, which I did a quiz in the chat room. Because here's the thing. When you do a show like this, sometimes there's a lot of repetitiveness, right? We kind of go over a lot of the same things in different ways. And so when, I can't remember who the other person was. I remember Brian was one of them. Brian was like, you should go over the rule of three more often because it's important and it's good stuff. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, I talk about that all the time, don't I? Seems like I talk about that all the time. So I just ran a quiz in the chat room and it's like, what's the rule of three? In one person, two people, because Jeff said he was slow typing on his phone. And I'll take his word for it. He didn't just copy Bill. But, there are people like rule of three. What is that? We'll get to it. All right. So we're going to get to the rule of three here. And although that's a good answer with you, Bill is like, or with Lisa, Gary. I'm not sure if it's Lisa or Gary because it says Lisa and Gary. I'm not sure which one it is. Maybe they're both taking turns typing on the phone. And they said, always keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. Always keep your finger off the trigger and always keep the firearm unloaded. It's a good guess, but it's not right because there's actually 4 firearm safety rules. And you've named 3 of the 4. That's not bad. But it's Lisa. It's Lisa out there. So, good guess, but not right. So obviously, I apparently need to talk about the rule of 3 more often. So I'm going to talk about that in a bit. That's called the hook. It means you got to stick with me. All right. Well, I guess we'll talk about the bad news. So this is interesting when you dive down into the details. And I know it gets a bit pedantic and, you got to be a little bit detail oriented. But on Wednesday, the Supreme Court in a 7-2 decision upheld the ATF's rule that was promulgated under the Biden administration that treats unfinished frames and receivers and DIY gun-making kits as fully functional firearms. Dissenting from the opinion was Justice Thomas and Alito. And Justice Thomas was very nice about it. Alito, not so much. He got a little heated. I mean, as heated as you can get in a Supreme Court judicial dissent. But he didn't really pull any punches, which is interesting. Now, the interesting thing here is that this case was not tried or not argued from a Second Amendment standpoint. The focus of the arguments was about the Administrative Procedures Act, which is again basically the bureaucratic rulemaking set, right, behind the scenes. Before ATF could enforce its rule, and this is from part of the majority opinion. Before ATF could enforce its rule, gun manufacturers and others filed what they described as a facial challenge under the Administrative Procedures Act, arguing that the GCA cannot be read to reach weapons parts kits or unfinished frames or receivers. The district court agreed and vacated the rule. The Fifth Circuit affirmed, holding that the category does not reach categorically does not reach weapons parts kits regardless of completeness or ease of assembly. And then it goes on. I mean, I don't want to read a bunch of verbal, legalese and code and thing. Basically, under the facial challenge, the rule must be found to always violate in a particular statute. In this case, the Administrative Procedures Act. So even after the decision from Wednesday, don't worry, there's still an ability for manufacturers to bring an applied challenge to the rule under the Second Amendment. This is just one way. This is the first take on this. Some folks said that there's some people in the gun community who were saying that they weren't fully surprised by this, like they expected it, some of the more legal beagle minds. And so, in reading some of those things and reading the dissents and reading some of the things, I got a little less heated than I was about this to begin with, because there is an opportunity here. Gun manufacturers could bring this back as an applied challenge to the rule, and the Trump administration could also formally repeal the ghost gun rule itself. Now, it could be then applied later on by another administration, but the Trump administration could right now just repeal this rule, which was one of the things that he promised on the campaign trail, if you'll remember, which we're going to touch on here in a bit, because that's part of some of the slow walking things that we're seeing here, including, you'll remember, President Trump talked about during his campaign that he would repeal everything, here's a quote, every single Biden attack on gun owners and manufacturers will be terminated on my very first week back in office, perhaps on my first day, unquote. That's a quote. And now I know we're only 2 months into the administration. I know he did his executive order. I know that I'm still cautiously optimistic, but you want to take a stand on this? The Trump administration could formally repeal its own rule at this point. It's not his rule, but it was a rule from a former, you know what I mean? You know what I mean. Anyway, then we get into the dissenting opinions. And we get into the majority opinion. So if unfinished frames and receivers can be treated as fully functional firearms, this is Tom Knighton, or Cam Edwards' argument over there, because they can be converted into such, what's stopping the Supreme Court or lower courts from adopting arguments of anti-gunners that semi-automatic firearms should be treated like machine guns because they too can be converted to full auto? And Gorsuch then says, the result the plaintiffs warn could leave many Americans facing new and unforeseen criminal liabilities for possession of a machine gun simply because they own a popular and commonly available rifle. The plaintiffs' fears are misplaced, says Gorsuch. The government represents that AR-15 receivers do not qualify as the receiver of a machine gun, nor the government emphasizes has ATF ever suggested otherwise. This is the same ATF that classified a string as a machine gun. Much the same can be said of our reasoning today. As we have stressed, the statute's text and context are critical to determining whether and to what extent Congress used an artifact noun to reach unfinished objects. And without a doubt, the NFA and the GCA are different statutes passed at different times to address different problems using different language. Our analysis of the GCA thus does not begin to suggest that ATF possesses authority to regulate AR-15 receivers as machine guns under NFA. Oh, there's some serious hair splitting going on here, right? The GCA, the Gun Control Act of 1968, the NFA, the National Firearms Act of 1934. They're acting like they're two separately different laws that do not correlate or do not combine in any way. It is a problem. Now, you will recall that Gorsuch and his fellow justices also stated that the Second Amendment is in a second-class right. Cam goes on to say, but that hasn't stopped lower court judges from treading all over our right to keep and bear arms. Similarly, today's note of caution about treating semi-automatic firearms as machine guns may be very well disregarded by lower courts going forward. I mean, the lower courts are giving the finger to the Supreme Court over things like safe spaces and everything else. Why should this be any different? Clarence Thomas took issues with multiple aspects of the majority decision, including asserting that gun-making kits can be treated as complete firearms under the GCA. This is Clarence Thomas. The text, context, and structure of Statute 921A3 leaves little doubt that weapons parts kits are not firearms, and that the unfinished contents of these kits are neither frames nor receivers. But even if it were reasonable to treat artifact nouns differently, the government would at most demonstrate statutory ambiguity. And when a statute with criminal applications is ambiguous, the rules of lenity apply. Meaning if you're uncertain, you fall onto the side of lenience. Which, by the way, Brett Kavanaugh, remember him, the one that everybody was fighting for because he was so unjustly accused and everything else? He wants to grant lenity. He wants to basically give Chevron deference to the government in this case. That's part of his thing. Sorry. Thomas goes on to say, nothing in the GCA suggests that the term frame or receiver also includes the materials that one would use to create them, and that parts, including neither frame nor receiver, could constitute a weapon. There are, however, many reasons to conclude the opposite. Even the government appears to have found these competing interpretations persuasive just a few years ago. See the brief for ATF, and then he goes on to name the thing. It endorses a position that it now rejects. He says, now it says the opposite. The law hasn't changed. Only the interpretation of the law by the agency. In his own dissent, Samuel Alito, I love this because he calls out names. Samuel Alito basically said the court decides this case on a ground that was no traced and decided below, and that was not the focus of the briefing or argument of this court. Basically saying we're not even arguing on what we're supposed to be arguing on. Basically saying that this wasn't a true facial challenge as presented by the plaintiffs. But he did take out time to point out what he believes is the limited nature of this ruling, and calls out Sotomayor specifically, which I thought was interesting because normally they don't do that too much. Justice Sotomayor's suggestion that I have mischaracterized what the court has held demands a response. Although Justice Sotomayor obviously wishes that the court had gone further, all that the court has actually held is that the ATF rule is not facially invalid because at least some applications of the rule are consistent with the statute. Remember what I said earlier? It has to be all in all the time. It has to consistently violate the rules. And the two examples that the court cites are, one, a kit that contains all the parts needed to make a semi-automatic pistol and that can be assembled in 21 minutes, which is weird. There was a time frame on it, right? It's like 20 minutes or more. If it can be 21 minutes, it's a gun. If it's 22 or 23, then it's not. I mean, it's like, and two, a frame that can be made functional simply by clipping off two plastic tabs and drilling new holes. The court has not held that any other kits are presently non-functional receivers are covered. So it's a limited scope specifically to a specific subset. This is a mess. This whole thing is really a mess. And again, the president could step up and basically blunt the decision today, could basically put a woe back on it by formally repealing the frame and receiver rule. Now, that wouldn't stop a future administration from jumping into it, but it would at least take some of the teeth out of this right now and give us more opportunity to get prepared to fight this in a different way. But that's for the next segment. President Trump, what is going on with your gun rights bad self? What's going on there? I want to know. We'll continue the Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay. Hi, how are you? How are you? How you feeling? All right. Sorry. Let me excuse me while I rip this out here. I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna fix this part right here. I'm gonna do that right there. I'm gonna do that. Okay. Sorry. Just moving some stuff around. Moving some stuff around in here. Yeah. So Bill says, and this is really, I mean, it's reduction to the ridiculous, but Bill is not wrong. So if I mine ore, iron ore, we're mining firearms. I mean, right? That's the thing. David said, I was under the assumption that serial numbers were not required on guns if they don't leave the state and were manufactured in it. Wild West Guns makes rifles with no serial numbers for in-state use only. Personal firearms don't require serial numbers if you built them for yourself. You cannot sell firearms without serial numbers. You cannot sell it like, and they, even for in-state use, even if it's marked for in-state use only. Personal use firearms do not require a serial number if you keep them in the state that you manufactured them and you use them and you built it for you. But you can't sell guns without serial numbers. That's a good way to get ATF knocking on your door. Okay. Teresa's over here giving me rule of 3 for Cajun, the Cajun rule of 3: onion, sweet bell pepper, celery. And that's the Cajun rule of 3 for making gumbo. Okay. All right. Okay. David gets it. David's got it. Okay. I'm still scrolling through here. I only trust Thomas, says Joel McKinney, which is too bad because what? He's at 80. I mean, it's man. Chevron is dead, says Jeannie. I know Chevron's dead. The Chevron deference is dead, but again, in his commentary, Kavanaugh actually was like, well, we should, he, in his concurrence, he basically said that DOJ and ATF should be given the benefit of a doubt, to engage in overzealous prosecution for unwitting and unwilling violations of the law. It's downright laughable, says Cam Edwards. And I agree. A little disappointing, Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh at this point. I'm sorry, we're going over here. I'm out of carrots for the horses too. My wife's out of sitting. I'm on my own. David is like, he can't be trusted, apparently. He had to give up coffee for adrenal issues, and he's down to water and milk, and he's out of milk. And now he says, I'm out of carrots for the horses too. My wife is out of state visiting her dad. I'm on my own. Come on, David. You're a grown man. Get your groceries together. Get yourself together. He said, I'm headed to Three Bears as soon as the show's over. Frank says apparently appointing SCOTUS judges is just like voting for officials. They tell you what you want to hear until they hold office. Now, interestingly enough, this case being argued on the merits of the Administrative Procedures Act versus the Second Amendment, they could still bring it back on Second Amendment grounds, and that would be an interesting case. I think it may have gone a little bit differently based on a Second Amendment argument, but they were specifically arguing about the Administrative Procedures Act. So I don't know if that was good. I don't know if that was good strategy, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, and I definitely don't argue cases in front of the Supreme Court. They probably know better than me, but I would have thought arguing it on Second Amendment grounds would have been better. But maybe there were dangers there that I'm just not aware of. Sounds like David's writing a country song. I could see that. I'm out of carrots for my horse. My wife is out of state visiting her dad, and I'm all on my own. Yeah, it does sound like a country western song, doesn't it? All right. At least I haven't burned the house down, he says. Let's go. Let's get going on. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do this thing. Oh, hey, I forgot to play. I should have played this last time, but I didn't. So here you go.
What the hell's an assault weapon?
If we could just figure out how to get all of the murder guns and the attack guns and not keep selling those to people and just sell protection guns, I think that would be great and solve a lot of problems.
Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
Yep, welcome back. It is Firearms Friday. Firearms Friday. Here on NPR. That's my NPR voice. Thank you for coming in and doing it. We're going to talk about guns. Yeah. All right. So let's dive into this. The thing is, after talking about all this thing with the SCOTUS discussion, and what the Supreme Court's doing and everything else, the president has an opportunity. The president has the opportunity because there's been a lot of, Cam says in another article talks about that there's bad takes abounding. after the whole SCOTUS decision. And there's some hand wringing, and there's a lot of things that are going on. He's talking about Vox takes it out of context. The LA Times takes it out of context. Which of course, not surprising, right? With all these things. But the bottom line is the president has an opportunity here. The president has a huge opportunity where he could basically defang this decision by just repealing the rule. The frame and receiver rule was put forward under the Biden administration through pressure from, I'm sure, the Office of Gun Violence Prevention or something else, because obviously Biden wasn't signing anything or really directing anything. He was in the basement rocking Wapner in the chair, right? The auto pen probably got brought out, and he penned off a memo to ATF to said, put this frame and receiver rule in play. It could be repealed. Now, again, that wouldn't stop future presidents who are so inclined to reinstate it, but at least in the short term, it would fix this for a while. And that could, and with the ATF potentially changing down the road. And what I mean by that is they're talking about merging the ATF and the FBI. They're talking about moving 1,000 ATF agents into the FBI. I don't know if you saw that piece. We might get to that today as well. Kash Patel is working on it. But in the meanwhile, it would at least take that off the table. But this leads to a bigger question. My buddy David Codrea over at Firearms News and the War on Guns blog is writing about this. And the story actually is about some of the wild swings of the gun control pendulum. And he talks a little bit about the Ninth Circuit and their decision on Duncan versus Bonta. I don't know if you've seen this out of California, where they basically decided that a magazine, a 10-round magazine or a 30-round that essentially that they're an accessory and they're not covered by the Second Amendment, regardless of the fact that they're a required component of the firearm, right? That'd be like saying bullets that's not part of it. So, I mean, you can keep your gun all you want, but bullets, they'd be illegal. So sorry, sucker. Again, this is the argument. This is the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision, is that the magazine for the feeding device for the firearm is an accessory and therefore not covered by the Second Amendment. I mean, yeah, super dumb. And that's what Codrea's article starts off about. But he gets into this point later on in the article where he talks about the president, and there could be things and movements on the national scale to make some of this stuff to basically stand out on this. And some of these, he basically said, look, this kind of shotgun approach that's been going on where he's kind of all over the place and not really stating which direction they're flying. He did the whole thing with Pam Bondi and all that, is kind of an unfocused approach. And this is Codrea's. This is in Firearms News. I suppose I should drop the link in the chat room. I'll drop the link to this in the chat room. You guys can read it for yourself, and we'll see what it comes down to. But here's what Codrea writes. Policies out of Maine justice continue to leave gun owners uncertain of the Trump administration's overall intentions for the Second Amendment, and it's left the gun community divided. Some are afraid that we've been conned again. Others say patience and talk of 3D chess. Meanwhile, things go back and forth. Again, you guys have chastised me. Many of the listeners have chastised me for bringing this up in the past and saying, I'm worried. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm worried because of his past history. And they're just like, oh, man, you just don't like Trump, the thing. And you just he'll do fine. Don't worry. You'll see. Okay. All right. I'm still a little worried. The president's executive action ordering AG Bondi to assess any ongoing infringements on the Second Amendment rights of our citizens and present a proposed plan of action to protect the rights of all Americans seemed like a good first step, although the infringements addressed only going back to the Biden term. They should have gone back a lot further. David talked about that when he was on the show last time. Still, his campaign promise to roaring crowds was that every single Biden gun attack on gun owners and manufacturers will be terminated on my very first week back in office, perhaps my first day. Not that he'd assigned someone to study the problem. Based on his pledge, it was fair to assume that the incoming administration had already done its homework and would hit the ground running. They were not encouraged by the news that Bondi had missed the deadline for her report. Then it was learned that she asked for an extension. That extension has come and gone, and Justice and the White House are keeping the conclusions of that study close to the vest. Meanwhile, there have been legal developments leaving some of us scratching our heads. DOJ still refuses to say where it gets its statutory authority to press a citizen for consent to permanent entry in the NICS background system. That creates an unauthorized by Congress class of prohibited persons without a conviction or the other disqualifier by law. He goes on to talk about a FOIA request. But he's raising some valid concerns. The Trump administration could fix all of this if they just started taking some action here. Because again, he gave her the executive order. She was supposed to look at everything. Then she asked for the extension, and now we've heard nothing. That's a problem. That's a real problem. All right, Larry's on the phone. We need to get to him real quick because we only got about a minute or so left. Good morning, Larry. What's on your mind?
Oh, morning, Michael.
Morning.
I just thought I'd relate to the folks out there that on the 12th and 13th of next month, which is just a couple of weeks away, a couple of weekends, they're having their annual spring gun show.
Okay.
That's on the Palm Sunday weekend.
Okay. And where's that at? And where's that at, Larry?
You broke up there, Michael. I didn't understand what you said.
Where is it, Larry?
Yeah, it's the Tanana Valley Sportsman Association building there on Catty Corner across from Fred Meyer West.
Okay, and that's on the weekend of the weekend of the 12th and the 14th. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 12th and 13th. I believe
12th and 13th. Okay. All right, Larry. Well, that's up in Fairbanks on Airport Way there across from Fred Meyer's West. You can go check it out. 12th and 13th at the Tanana Valley Sportsman Show. Thank you so much, Larry. I'm sorry I'm out of time. We got to go.
Well,
the Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. I just hung up on Larry and he wanted to say something else. Now I feel bad. Now I should have just muted him. I hung up on him instead. I see Fred is up in the thing here. Fred, hold the line, my friend. Gonna be right back to you. The Michael Duke Show. I need a sec, folks. Be right back. My wife's dog has figured out that she can get herself into the studio if she hits the door hard enough. I've got to fix the latch because she just keeps popping the door open and then running around under my feet during the show, wanting to be picked up. Meanwhile, the door's open and I'm yelling and screaming and waking my wife up. Anyway, yeah. Let me go back up here. I have to drive back to Fairbanks today. What stations channels that MD owns that I can listen to? I don't own any stations north of, you're in Anchorage, right? My stations are heard on the peninsula. So you'd have to drive south. And you can't get to Fairbanks for driving south. Just throwing that out there. Tawny says the Ninth Circuit would like that if ammo was illegal. They would uphold that. I know, right? The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Only a week to get your Ice Classic tickets. Sale closes April 5th. You'd be lucky if the ice doesn't go out before it ends, before the things end. I mean, that's crazy. All right. I was like, what is Brian saying here? Upright and I'm not crying. Oh, you're saying you finally got out of bed at 6:43 in the morning and you're not crying. Good. Neither am I. I'm not crying. You are. What about KFAR, says Sandy. What about KFAR? KFAR. I don't own KFAR. KFAR is just I syndicate to KFAR. But they do carry my show. I mean, that's part of the whole syndication thing. Brian says part of this legal back and forth is serving to scare gun owners and would-be gun owners. I would agree with that in part and parcel because it's so when there's so much uncertainty, around that kind of stuff, it's hard to know. And that's part of the problem with, it's one of the few things that I think is really problematic in our legal system. And it's actually something that has been written about for a couple hundred years is that, laws and things need to be clear so that people can understand them. And the only people that benefit when laws become convoluted and you need lawyers to understand them is the only people that benefit are the lawyers and the politicians. Or maybe they're one and the same. I just, it shouldn't be that hard. So I agree with you, Brian. Frank says, don't get KFAR until Cantwell. Yeah. Well, that's, it's hard. You're through the mountains. You're getting up into a mountain pass and it's an AM radio and you're 150 miles south of the town that it's transmitting from. So that's a pretty good reach through hill country and mountains. 150 miles, not bad. What you could do is you could just download some episodes of the show as a podcast and then listen to the show all the way through. I mean, come on. You'd only have to listen to 3 shows to get all the way to Fairbanks from Anchorage or Wasilla, right? So 6 hours. You can do that. It'd be fun. Just download the last 3 Firearms Fridays and listen on through. It'd be great. That's the beauty of the podcast, right? You can get them anywhere and you can put me on pause. You could fast forward me. You could even play me at 1.5 times speed, although that would sound really weird. I have a lot of friends who listen. Yeah, I listen to podcasts at like 1.5 speeds, 1.25 speeds, 1.5. I'm like, why? Well, because I want to get through it. I'm like, I'm here. I'm listening for the info, not the. Some people do. That's how they do everything. They watch YouTube videos, they listen to podcasts, and they do it at like 1.5 speed. And I'm like, why? You just enjoy. Now, I mean, there have been times, granted, that I have turned the speed up on somebody who is really slow and just deliberate. But if I'm doing it for enjoyment, first of all, I'm not listening to guys like that. If I'm doing it for show prep or something like that, I might speed it up. But yeah, I got friends that they listen to everything at 1.25 to 1.5 speed. And I'm just like, first of all, I'm like, wow, that'd be great. I don't even know what you're talking about. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Yeah. I'm taking a sip from a fire hose. All right. Where are we? Oh, we're top of the hour. Okay. We got to talk to Fred. We got to talk about the rule of 3, don't we? I promised both of those things. So we'll talk to Fred. I'll apologize to Larry for cutting him off, and then we'll talk to Fred, and then we'll jump into the rule of 3. There you go. All right. I guess we're ready. Let's do this thing. The Michael Duke Show. Yeah.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Duke Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Duke Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Take my rifle, this is my gun. This is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday. Your chance to sound off on issues of a two-way nature right here on the Michael Duke Show. Hello, my friends. Good morning to you. How are you? How is Friday treating you? Boy, I got to tell you what. First things first, I got Fred on the line. He's waiting, and I appreciate your patience, Fred. We'll be right to you. First things first, I had to just say, because I meant to mention it in hour one. Yesterday, the most amazing day in Homer so far since we got here. Blue skies, visibility out to 30 miles probably. It was just crystal clear, warm. I'm walking around in a t-shirt. It was amazing day yesterday in Homer. Blue, just so beautiful. Second thing, apologies to Larry. Larry was calling in talking about the gun show in Fairbanks. But I was up against the break and I hung up on Larry at the very end there. He was going to say something else. So Larry, I apologize. Feel free to call back in if you wanted to finish your thought. I apologize, but I was a slave to the phone. I was slave to the clock at that point. All right. So that being said, Fred has waited patiently throughout the whole commercial break, and he's back with us now. Fred from Rhode Island calls in every week when the phones are open, and so we welcome him to the program. Hello, Fred. What's going on?
Hey, good morning, Michael. You know, the problem with the podcast, listen to the show on the podcast, you can't respond to it. The only thing you do is sit there and yell and scream at the radio, which, then my neighbors think I'm some kind of a nut, which is nothing new, but nothing new there.
Yeah, really. I mean, does that surprise anyone, Fred, when there's Fred yelling and screaming again? What's going on? It's a Thursday.
Anyway, the reason I'm calling in is, there's an old saying, as far as which Trump is going with the Second Amendment decisions he's trying to make. Thought without action is a disaster. Action without thought is a disease. That's an old phrase from way back. But I think it applies to what he's up to, what he's doing. He doesn't want to jump into. I don't think he really wants to jump into it without researching most avenues, if not all the avenues available to him, before he makes a hard and fast decision, which is probably a wise thing to do. As opposed to, taking the popular route and just kind of everything two-way without looking at, without checking dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's beforehand. So I think he's just being cautious. I think he's just being maybe a little too cautious.
Well,
at least he is conscious to be cautious.
Let me comment on that, Fred. I would say that maybe, but based on everything else he's done, I mean, you could see this whole shock and awe thing that Trump has had from the day he took the presidency back in January, where he hit the ground running, and they had everything pre-planned. You could tell. I mean, they've been working on this for a while, right? He had a plan. He executed the plan. And I mean, it was just executive order, decision, policy change. I mean, it was just like boom, 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 boom. And so to say he's just taking his time with the Second Amendment, either shows that, one, he didn't have good advisors on this specific topic, which is concerning because he made a lot of promises, or two, he's kind of vacillating on this thing, and it makes me a little worried, right? I can't say that he's just being caught, because on everything else, he had an answer for everything. He had executive orders lined out. He had things ready to go. They knew exactly what they were going to do. So I don't know if I buy that, Fred.
Well, you're probably right. In one respect, it's the fact that it's taking a lot longer than normal as to what he wanted to. He probably could have jumped in there on day one, could have, turned the whole thing around and straightened the whole thing out in 10 minutes. But it's kind of like a surgeon going in for an operation. You don't know what the hell you're going to be getting into until you get there. Till you open things up and take a good look. Then you really know what you're dealing with, as opposed to trying to guess at it ahead of time.
Right.
So, you got to look at it from, you got to give a little bit of credit there.
Sure. I mean, I could see that. I could see some of that. Sure.
Sure. Well, you don't know what you're getting into until you step in it. Then you know exactly what you're getting into. So, I mean, he's stepping in it right now, and he's kind of, discovering, we didn't see that ahead of time. Well, we couldn't anticipate that happen until we figured it out for now. But, I can see being a little cautious, which I get to give him credit. It's a lot better than that last buffoon that was in there. This guy just reacted without any thought at all. Not that he's capable of thought, but he just did everything with no thought. And
Sure.
you can see how that turned out.
Right. No. I mean, he's much better than the Muppet. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And he's much better than Kamala. I had just hoped that he would deliver on, especially that promise that I was just talking about, where he said basically, hey, in the first, every single Biden attack on gun owners and manufacturers will be terminated on my very first week back in office, perhaps my first day. End of quote. I had just hoped that that would come through.
You're right in that respect. I can see that. Like I say, I think he's just kind of like just taking a moment and thinking it through, so he can get it right the first time, and have to go back and do it over, and then have to put a Band-Aid on it later on because something fell apart because it wasn't put together right. So I can see that. It's being a little cautious. Yeah, I'll give him a little credit. Give him a little credit and a little time.
Sure.
To let him actually figure it out.
Sure.
The other thing is, we just went through this whole thing with the over here in Rhode Island. They're trying to pass this AR-15, this assault weapons ban, which kind of now includes all semi-automatic firearms, which is going to be the next wildfire going across the country, as far as the new gun ban scheme,
right?
That the progressives are trying to push through on the gun control. But I think that the whole thing is based on it has been based on features, which is crazy. I mean, just the features. When you hear the description of what they're trying to ban and why it makes it so deadly. The folding stock, the collapsible stock, the pistol grip, the flash hider, the bayonet lug, the barrel shroud, all that. You get a description of a Christmas ornament. All glitter, no guts, no gusto. It doesn't change anything.
Right.
But it makes it look either pretty or makes it look dangerous. And that's as far as looks go. Looks are not facts.
No. I mean, we need. Yeah, you can talk. It's like talking the talk without walking the walk. I mean, you've got to deliver, and you've got to have some real. You can't have just a facade. You've got to have the real deal in the background to make it happen.
Well, I think that's one of those things that eventually, if it hasn't already, it's probably already hitting Alaska in a very low tone, because people up there aren't going to put up with it. Or at least they're going to be a little more aware of it because they're a little more gun conscious than most of the rest of the country is.
Right. Well, they're saying the quiet part out loud.
I think even in Alaska, they're going to try to pull some kind of BS like this too. So,
well, I mean,
to be aware of.
Look, Fred, they're saying the quiet part out loud now, right? Which is that now we're going after semi-automatics. They did the same thing in Colorado. Now they're doing it in Rhode Island. They're going to try and conflate, and they've tried to do this for years, conflate automatics with semi-automatics. What was funny was that in the Bonta case in California, they actually had the panel actually had to school the attorney because he kept conflating automatics with semi-automatics. And one of the judges had to say, we're talking about different actions here than what, so they keep trying to do that. But I don't think people are going to fall for it. I mean, that's what they want, but I don't think people are going to fall for it particularly, because again, now you're talking about 80% of the firearms.
That don't understand it.
Right. Well, you're talking about 80% of the firearms in the country are probably semi-automatic. So, I mean, that's a huge component. You're not going to. I don't think people would stand for that, quite honestly.
I hope you're right. Like I say, there's so much naivety out there, in terms of like the general public goes. I don't say the firearms communities. I don't say it's a small community, but I think the vast majority of people do not really understand what's going on, except what they hear on the news, what they hear from these crazy politicians,
right,
and progressives, and the globalists, and the people who just want to take over your life and rule everything you do. It's up to those people. We'd all be sunk.
Right.
And again, most people just go along with it because they don't know. It's such a vast valley of ignorance out there that just kind of keeps the ball rolling. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that's part and parcel of the problem, for sure, is the ignorance and the fact that people keep counting on the media to inform them of anything at this point.
Well.
Yeah, sorry about that, Fred. I had myself muted. It's the problem with the common citizenry who are basically counting on the media to inform them of anything, and not go out and make decisions for themselves, or not go out and discover this stuff for themselves. That's part of the problem. That's a huge part of the problem, for sure, because that's where they're getting all their information.
The old saying, believe half of what you read, half of what you see, and nothing of what you read, and you might be all right.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Fred. Well, thank you so much for calling in, my friend. It was good to talk with you. Hope you have a great weekend. Appreciate you listening and calling in from Rhode Island today.
You too. You take care now, Mike. Take care.
All right, thanks so much, Fred, calling in. That leaves the phone line open, by the way, 319-527-3864, 319-527-3864. Would love to hear what you guys have to say here. Anything related to Firearms Friday, that's for sure. By the way, I mentioned it earlier, but this case out of California, the case that's going on, the U.S. v. Bonta. I don't know if you guys have been following this. Not U.S. Duncan versus Bonta in California, the one where they decided that magazines are accessories. They're not part of the firearm. They're not a required. I mean, accessory makes it sound like it's optional, right? It's an accessory. It's optional, except for it's required for the operation of the firearm. It is the feeding mechanism that's like saying your car without a gas tank. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Gas tanks, that's an accessory. The gas tank's an accessory. It's optional. Well, I don't know if you saw this judge, Lawrence Van Dyke. He did a video on YouTube that is just fantastic, where he goes through and he basically does, and you don't see this too often, where he actually offers as a judge, and he's a judge for the Ninth Circuit. He offers a dissent in video form and goes about, and in over 18 minutes breaks down the problems with the case. And it's just amazing to watch, because not only, and this is David Codria's words, but I agree with him. I agree with him totally. During this video, he removes and attaches optional accessories, not only showing the majority for the insufferable ignoramuses on guns that they are, but also doing a better job at field stripping the pistols that he has than any ham-handed ATF officials have done in their propaganda videos trying to justify more bans. And this judge is so good at this and does such a good job. It should be It should absolutely be required viewing for any judge out there who is going to make a ruling on firearms, because they obviously don't understand. I mean, that's the thing. Judges and politicians are insufferably ignorant on firearms. We know that.
Put a pistol on a brace, it turns into a gun. Makes it more, you can have a higher caliber weapon, a higher caliber bullet coming out of that gun. It's essentially turning it into a short barrel rifle, which has been a weapon of choice by a number of mass shooters.
We all know because of the ammunition magazines that can be strapped on to so many pistols that these become automatic weapons similar to AK-47s.
What?
Ammunition
Have you ever
magazines.
seen a gunman fire what looks like a machine gun with just one hand? That's what pistol braces allow you to do. I say, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
In February, you introduced the Assault Weapons Ban and Law Enforcement Protection Act of 2007. It would regulate semi-automatic assault weapons, including weapons that have pistol grips, a forward grip, and something called a barrel shroud. Weapons with a barrel shroud would be regulated. What's a barrel shroud, and why should we regulate it?
I think the more important thing is that it also would have had banned the large capacity clips.
Right.
That Colin Ferguson had used, and also the killer.
Okay. But I read the legislation. I'm sorry. I read the legislation, and it said that it would regulate barrel shrouds. What's a barrel shroud, and why should we regulate that?
The guns that were chosen back in those days were basically the guns that most gangs and criminals were using to kill our police officers. I'm not saying it was the best bill, but that was the best bill they could get out at that particular time. I actually don't know what a barrel shroud is. I think it's a shoulder thing that goes up.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. God have mercy on your soul.
That's the thing, right? They have no idea. They're making laws. They're making decisions. They're infringing on people's rights with no true purpose, meaning, or understanding of what they're actually ruling on, the physicality of a lot of these things. And this judge, Van Dyke, he does an amazing job. I posted links up in the chat room. I will also post this up to my Facebook page for those who want to go out there and take a look at it. It is amazing. Go check it out and see what's happening. All right, we got one more segment coming up, and then we are going to talk about, we're going to talk about the rule of three in the next segment. Rule of three in the next segment, because I said I would, and I always hold my word. And then Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. Let's go. All right, back with more right after this. Don't go anywhere. We'll return with more Firearms Friday after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Oof. I got distracted there for a second because that dog pushed the door open again, man. I'm gonna have to fix that because dang, I don't need that. Do you need that? I love that little doggy, but please, you're killing me. You're killing me. All right. Let me put this off the thing here, and then this is up there, and then I could do that, and boom. Boom. Hold on. Okay. And then Harold comes into the room and just basically starts talking about something we're not even talking about. Dude, read the room. Are you like not even? I mean, what? Huh? All right. Let's go over here. Somebody said someone needs to check in, do a friend check on Greg. He hasn't been in chat. Greg was in chat yesterday. He's just been joining chat from Rumble. Greg was here yesterday. I highlighted one of his comments yesterday. Captain GC, whatever. Captain G. He may be on Rumble right now. There's 8 people on Rumble right now watching, so he may be over there on Rumble right now. So I don't know. Greg, if you're here, sound off like you got a pair. All right, we'll do that. Let's see. What? A politician talking about something they don't know, they know nothing about? When did this start happening? Bill says, hello, I'm Juno. Have you met me? Yeah, I mean, that is so great. That is so great. Absolutely. But this video, it is so good. We should do, if I could figure out how to get my audio from my YouTube to come poured into my, it's something I've never really messed with because I don't do it very often, but I would love to do a watch party with this video because it is amazing. It is amazing right now. Because I don't think you guys can hear my desktop video. Let's see. Let me test it. You guys tell me if you can hear. Can you hear that? Somebody ought to tell me. If you guys can hear that, let me know. Because if so, then maybe I can pull something together. We could do a watch party on this because it is an amazing video. And I've only seen clips of it. I haven't seen the full thing. But I would like, I mean, I might want to do a react video to it. Barely? Chris said you could hear it? Okay, so you could hear it. Barley is barley. Hold on. Let me see if I can fix this. Hold on. Turn that up there. Turn that up there. Turn that up there. Let me test it again. Okay, so that's full throttle. That's full throttle. Yeah, Khalil Noir did a clip video that's very good on this as well, where he clipped out some of the best parts of the judge's decision and rulemaking, or dissent rather, not rulemaking. So barely even less now. What? Barley? That's weird because I just turned it way up compared to where it was. And you guys are saying you hear it even less. How about this? Okay. So did you hear that? Was that any better? Because otherwise, I got to go to the big guns. And we'll try that. There you go. Okay. So now you have to tell me whether or not you heard that. Garbled, still low. You guys are killing me, man. Okay. Did you guys hear that? I'm just curious. Okay. Nope. They're saying, all right, well, maybe I have to record it and then watch it. And then I don't know. That's something it's not something that I normally have to deal with. And I've just never taken the time to mess with it. So you're going to need a professional to adjust your audio. Well, the audio is poor to begin with, but we'll get back to it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
What the hell is an assault weapon? Does that mean that if we hurt your feelings, you should consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can accept that. Here's Michael Dukes. Kind of a dick, but somewhat funny.
Okay, welcome back to the program. Good morning, and how are you, my friends? All right, so we're going to get to it here because we don't have a lot of time. The rule of three. Brian and others have suggested that I should hit on this more frequently, and so we're doing it. We're gonna get down into it. What is the rule of three? What does it mean? The rule of three is something I came up with, I don't know, quite a few years ago, and I mean maybe I stole it from somebody. I don't even remember at this point. If whoever, I'm sure this is not anything. I'm sure this is not anything. Earth-shattering to many folks. I'm sure somebody else has come up with something similar, but I call it my rule of three because if you're going to go forth armed on a daily basis, you've decided that you are going to go forth armed and protect yourself and those around you. Well, remember that the firearm is not some kind of mythical totem that protects you. It's not a laser shield, right? I mean, it's just having a firearm on your person is great, but it's only as good as your level of training, experience, and understanding of the laws, et cetera, that are going around it. That's all part and parcel of it. So when we talk about the rule of three, it's something that specifically deals with people, I think, well, it could be for anybody, but for anybody that decides that they want to conceal carry or they want to buy a handgun to be able to protect themselves, the rule of three is simply this. If you decide that you want to protect yourself or carry a gun on a daily basis, concealed carry, or a gun for your home, you should commit to the following. Figure out what the cost of your preferred firearm is going to be. I always like to use the $500 range, right? So it's a pistol, $500, right? $500 pistol. Now you need to commit that you're going to spend 3 times that amount of money overall in getting yourself ready to protect yourself and others. 3 times. So if the pistol is $500, expect to spend $1,500 in total. On what? Well, the first $500, of course, is the purchase of the firearm. The second $500 is the purchase of good quality accessories. And I'm talking about a good holster. Probably a good belt. If you're wearing it in a belt situation, which is most recommended, an on the body situation, you'll probably need a good belt. And a good belt that could cost, $70 to $100. A good holster, like a good custom made Kydex or leather holster, could be $100, $150. $70 to $150 maybe. And you need training implements like snap caps, dummy rounds, extra magazines, that kind of stuff. Maybe you're getting one of those Mantis systems where you can click on the laser and shoot your cell phone to see where your trigger pull is and everything else. You need those kind of accessories. It's going to cost you $500 for all those accessories. And the third $500, the third tranche of the 500 of all the 1,500 would be for training. You need to go get training. And that could be for a concealed carry class, which I recommend taking, even if you don't get the permit, simply because it helps you understand the laws, etc. It could be for a combat pistol class. It could be for a basic gun safety course. It could be for many other, but get some training with that firearm. And that includes going to the range yourself, shooting some ammo, putting some rounds down range, understanding how it feels, doing the math from real world costs here. Definitely need a more expensive gun. Okay. I mean, I don't know. What's a Glock cost these days, right? What's a Glock or an M&P Shield cost these days? $600, $700? I don't know. I haven't bought a pistol in a long time. Last time I bought a pistol, it was a Glock and it cost me $575. That was a good deal. It shows you how long ago it was that I bought it. But so I'm just using it for round numbers, folks. Don't get twisted on this. But the rule of three is basically it basically means you just have to take responsibility when you're going to go out there and be armed. Just having the pistol, just having the firearm is not going to save you. Having the firearm and carrying it every day, having the proper, you don't want an Uncle Mike's $5 holster that flops around, and every time you go to use the bathroom, the pistol drops out of the holster because you pull your pants down and it flops onto the bathroom floor, or, there's all kinds of, you want good accessories. You want good training. You want good everything when it comes to carrying a firearm and being prepared. You need all that. And the training is critical as well. And the range time. That's what it's all about. So the rule of 3 is, if you're going to do those things, if you're going to buy a gun to protect yourself and your family in your home, or you're going to buy a gun to carry concealed every day, this is an investment in yourself. That's what the rule of 3 is all about. And if it's $600 for a pistol, then figure on spending $1,800 overall. It's a lot of money. Yeah, I know. It's an investment in you, in your safety, and in being ready for anything. The Michael Duke Show. Okay, we're in the break. Frank says, this is exactly why I only buy $150 pistols. Well, Frank, you get what you pay for. Brian says, $600 for a Glock 19. $600 for a Glock 19. Okay. Well, I wasn't too far off. Like I said, I think I paid $555 or $575 for the last Glock that I bought, which would have been, gosh, well, it had to have been, damn, I'm getting old. It would had to have been 12, 13 years ago. That's the last time I bought a Glock. The training is a mismatch, is what Brian is saying. He said, it seems to me you get what you pay for. A CCW is about $350 all in. A defensive pistol course ranges from $225 locally to $1,250. I mean, that's true. And what I'm basically saying, again, at least, I guess I should use the phrase, spend at least 3 times what it comes down to. And maybe $500 or $600 for accessories is overkill. Maybe, but what I'm saying is, I just don't want people to cheap out on something that's important. People don't think, oh, holster's not that important. Oh, belt's not that important. Oh, the snap caps, dummy rounds, not that important. They are that important. Yes, they are all that important. You need a good, solid, well-built holster. You need a good belt to hold that holster up. That's not a cheap proposition for some people. And again, the training, a base course training should be, you should spend at least a third of that amount on training. And that should be, if you've never shot a gun, or you're not familiar, or it's been years and years and years, a refresher was not a bad idea. A basic pistol course, the concealed carry course, especially if you're planning on carrying concealed, I think the concealed carry course is a minimum. Again, not because you're trying to get your concealed carry permit, but it's what you list. It's what you Little, never watched it. I know who Frankie Muniz is. I know who Bryan Cranston is, James Kazmark. I know who the actors are, but I've never even seen it. But they're apparently doing a revival. But is it really?
Oh yeah, it's basically it's a continuation. It's a sequel. Let's call it what it is. It's a sequel. So Malcolm in the Middle, one of the funniest TV shows, on Fox television in its day, sitcom about a family that's completely out of control. Okay. This is not, the Cosby Show. This is not Leave It to Beaver. All the kids are rotten like kids really are. The parents are strung out and nervous like parents really are. And they're struggling to get by financially. And it was hilarious. And it was one of the best shows you'll watch. And now Disney Plus is picking it up. Years later now, they're going to check in with the family. The premise is they're going to have, I think it's 4 episodes where the family is coming back together for mom and dad's 40th wedding anniversary. And the big announcement this week is that they almost got everybody. They got a lot. Okay, so Bryan Cranston's coming back as the dad, which that to me was the big get. I mean, Bryan Cranston doesn't need to do this anymore. Like, he's doing okay in his career, but he wanted to do it. Jane Kazmarek is coming back as the mom. Frankie Muniz is coming back. We're going to have, Jason Barfield, Christopher Matheson. They were all, Masterson, sorry, were all brothers. But there's one brother who's not coming back. And I think this is very disappointing. And I think if you're a Malcolm in the Middle fan, you're going to be disappointed like I was. They're not going to get the original Dewey. Dewey, who for a long time was the youngest brother until they had other kids. And he was a smart mouth, and he was hilarious. He got all the really good one-liners. Well, Eric Sullivan, who played Dewey, kind of got out of the business. He only did a few things like afterwards as he grew up and kind of went off on his own and has never done any reunions and is not going to do the show either. So they've gone out. They've hired another kid. Well, not kid, because now everybody's an adult. Caleb Ellsworth Clark, who will be coming back. And so we got everybody but Dewey. It'll be all right, folks. It'll still be good.
And it was a funny show. Then you're saying this was a great show to watch.
It was a hilarious show. If you, I don't even know where it's streaming, but wherever it's streaming, find it. The whole premise is that Malcolm is a genius. He really doesn't fit in with his family. He doesn't fit in with most of the neighbors, and nobody can really figure out how he is surviving all the madness around him.
All right. Well, we'll have to watch it. So that's coming. When's it coming out? When's the due date?
In the fall. They're looking for the fall. Okay. So they're just going into production right now in Vancouver, which is standing in for an American city again, and they'll bring it out in the fall. Yeah, they better be careful. They may have to pay a tariff to show that in America.
I was just going to say they might have to pay more because it's a Canadian city. All right. I mean, this is the land of reboots and requels and sequels and everything else. And the next one is one that I came home the other day, and it was Saturday. Terry is watching this movie, and I'm like, I know this movie. What? And it was My Cousin Vinny, Marissa Tomei, Joe Pesci, and I'm like, wow, I have not seen this in 20 years. I mean, easily 20 years. But they're talking about a sequel, a reboot, a requel. What is it?
Yeah, My Cousin Vinny Part 2 is in discussion, and we know this because Ralph Macchio, who was in the original, he squealed. He told the tale. He is doing the new Karate Kid movie coming out around Memorial Day, and so he's doing a lot of press and doing a lot of interviews. And somebody said, "Hey, what about My Cousin Vinny?" He said, "Oh yeah, some writers called me and we were talking about it." So we might be getting a My Cousin Vinny sequel. Now the follow-up question was, well, how are you going to get Joe Pesci? I mean, Joe Pesci is, for all intents and purposes, retired.
Right.
He's 83 years old. I think he's done 3 movies in the last 10 years.
Right.
He's earned a lot of quiet time. And Macchio saying, like, I'm sorry, when he said this line, I'm like, there's a script. He has read it. This is in the script. He said basically, well, Joe could FaceTime it in here and it would work out really well.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So
All right.
I think we know. I think I figured out the plot.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right.
Okay.
But that's no date on that or anything else. It's more just kind of rumor mill stuff,
No.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, this is where it starts. You usually don't say something like that unless something's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just gonna throw it out
Yeah,
there.
I think he
Yeah.
probably wouldn't throw it out there unless he had something pretty solid. All right, well,
Yeah.
that brings us to the big story of the week, which we promised last week we were going to revisit because I was like, whoa. And it has just been, this whole week has just been Snow White, the new Snow White live it's getting murdered. I mean, everywhere, just merp. Unless you're on X, in which case there's a lot of people out there making excuses for it. It's the best thing ever, and it's a strong, and it's a retelling, but it's just been getting merped out there. Give me the details. I know you did the Box Office Mojo thing, checking the box office receipts and everything. What do you got for me here, man? Give me the takeaway.
It's one of the first big massive failures of 2025, and so the dirty numbers are: it cost $270 million to make this movie. That's not even including all the marketing costs. Okay, last weekend it cleared $43 million domestically and $44.3 million overseas. Okay, now for a regular movie, that'd be pretty good. Not when you spent $270 million to make the movie. The last bomb of this level for Disney on the live action front was back in 2019. If you remember the live action Dumbo movie, that premiered with $45 million domestically in 2019 dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that wasn't good.
Yeah, it did worse than Dumbo, and it was
Yeah,
all said and
with
done.
higher ticket prices.
With higher ticket
prices.
higher ticket prices.
Yep.
I saw something that said it's slightly overperformed in red state areas, which is kind of surprising with all the controversy.
This was really surprising to me. So I figured by this point, you guys have heard a lot about the box office. This was something a little more unique that I had saw that I thought was really cool. So there's this group out there called Intelligence, and they broke down all the numbers based on blue counties that voted for Kamala Harris and red counties that voted for Donald Trump. And they looked at the ticket sales and they looked at the total audience, and they found that Snow White drew 60% of its ticket sales and 56.5% of its total attendance from theaters located in those blue counties. But the surprising thing is, your blue counties usually comprise your bigger markets like New York and LA and Chicago.
Right.
So compare that 60% for Snow White to what would normally be about 67% of ticket sales for a regular movie.
Oh,
where did the movie come up? Well, it came up because they sold more tickets in red counties. So they got 40%, whereas maybe they would get 33%. Now, I don't think that means that all of a sudden there's all these Trump people supporting Snow White. I'm not willing to go that far. But they look at this here. They said you have to look at a lot of the demographic breakdowns. It drew a massive Latino audience. It drew 30% Latino, 43% white. So that was overperforming. Probably a lot of that because Rachel Zegler is a Latino, and I think there were a lot of people that wanted to support her. Now I don't think that necessarily. How do I want to say this? So the thought and the theme all week has been, Snow Woke drove away people. I think it was driven away a lot by kind of this Palestinian-Israeli problem.
Right.
Problem because you've got Rachel Zegler outright saying free Palestine. Gal Gadot, an Israeli citizen, is standing up for Israel, and I think that drove down ticket sales for red and blue counties. And I think that's why you saw that 43 million instead of a lot more. I think that had a lot to do with it. Now, there's still going to be a lot of people who don't want to see it because of the woke stuff. I completely agree. But I think a lot of it was more just the general angst and blah. And maybe just everybody's tired of the woke stuff. Maybe just everybody went, you know what? I just wanted to see Snow White, and this ain't Snow White.
Yeah.
Because it ain't Snow White.
Right. I'm just done with this. I'm done with this whole thing. And I think you could be right on that. All right. Well, let's go Good riddance to bad rubbish. Let's move over to the movies and the streams. You've got 3. We've got about 4.5, 5 minutes. What do you want to start?
All right, let's get rid of the first one. The Woman in the Yard. Oh, I'm telling you, this year, this was one of the best trailers I've seen that was a complete lie about how bad the movie was. This is so bad. Okay, so it's Danielle Deadwyler. She plays this woman. She's a widow. She's in horrible grief, living in this farmhouse that her and her husband had found and refurbished, and it was going to be their family home forever. But tragedy struck, and she's horribly depressed. Her 2 kids are having troubles, and we learn about this for like half an hour. And then all of a sudden, a crazy woman shows up sitting out in the yard in a big old ornate chair. And she's weird. And she keeps getting closer and closer and closer. But nothing's happening. It's so boring. Like, it needs to do something to build up the tension. It needs some more action. It needs something just exciting to happen.
Right.
It's not enough that, they go out and they talk to her and she like is kind of weird. They need more danger in this movie. I'm at half a waffle. I just don't like it at all.
Okay. All right. So Woman in the Yard in theaters, half a waffle. Don't even wait for the stream. Just skip it. What's next?
Then we've got The Studio. This is an Apple TV Plus series. They're going to have about 10 episodes. And in the style that I know you love, they released the first 2 this week, and then they're going to do 1 every Wednesday after that.
Kill me now. Kill me now.
It's Seth Rogen playing the new head of a studio. And, he's all excited because he wants to make artistic movies. He wants to make, movies that count with brilliant filmmakers and challenging ideas and art. And then the CEO, played by Bryan Cranston, tells him, we just bought the rights to the Kool-Aid Man, and you're making a movie about it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, and listen, it's very funny. I mean, it really is a parody and a satire of Hollywood and things like this. Like, we're going to make a big $billion movie about the Kool-Aid Man, and the pitches that you're hearing about it and the ideas that people have. And there's tons of cameos in here from, Charlize Theron, Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese, I dare say, may be up for an Emmy for best guest performance in a comedy series. He is hilarious in this movie, and lots of other people. And in each episode is just kind of like a little slice of life, a little slice of what his job is like. So the first one is about the Kool-Aid Man. Then the second episode is about him trying to go to the set because there's this filmmaker he loves, and they're going to do this scene, and he just wants to be there. And he's getting in the way in every way possible and ruining the day. So you get just a lot of laughs like that. Now it's not the most original thing. It's not it's not like mind blowing parody. I mean, you and I could probably write half of these jokes. But I'm going to be at 2.5 waffles. There's a lot of giggles, and there's some very big laughs.
All right, we got less than a minute now for The Working Man. Jason Statham. I'll always watch a Jason Statham movie, but give it to me quick here.
Dude, don't you know what's going to happen? Jason Statham, he's a retired military vet who worked in Black Ops, but he just wants to live a quiet life now, man. He just wants to get away from it all.
Of course he does.
Until the boss's daughter is kidnapped by human traffickers.
Of course she is.
And now he's going to kick some booty.
Yeah.
There's going to be extreme violence. There's going to be him cracking one-liners. And damn, that's just a 2.5 waffle movie right there.
Really?
That's what I need.
That's what I like. You know what? You know what you're going to get when you watch a Jason Statham movie. That's okay. 2.5 waffles. I will watch it tomorrow. That's good. A Working Man in theaters. All right, Willie, we're out of time. Thanks so much for coming on board and joining us. Folks, again, Monday, we've got more coming up. Scott Berg's going to be joining us. No, I'm sorry. Matt Bullard's going to be joining us on Monday. We'll see you then. Okay. I mean, you know what you're getting when you get it. I mean, of course, Jason Statham is a former Black Ops soldier, doing. I mean, of course he is the kung fu master, the stoic, I just want to be left alone to putter in my garden or to keep bees or to do whatever the hell he's doing this time, right? I mean, it's of course it is. But I mean, am I going to watch it? Of course I am. I mean, come on. The beekeeper and the mechanic and the transporter, and I mean, they're all the same movie, right? I mean, but it's fun to watch. I mean, it's good stuff.
He's entertaining. By the way, you know who is a co-writer of this movie?
Who's that?
Sylvester Stallone.
Of course he is. Of course he is.
Because Stallone goes, I know I got a movie for you, Jason.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I mean, yeah.
I'm with you. There's no surprises. There's nothing here that, but I'm going to laugh when Jason Statham gives it to the bad guys and throws a one-liner insulting them. I'm going to watch stuff blow up. I'm going to watch Jason Statham mete out some justice.
Right.
That's what I need to see.
Yeah, no, now occasionally he'll do a turn in a different movie. I think you and I talked about Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels a while back.
Very good, very good.
Which is also it's a kind of a comedy, but it's also got some dramatic stuff in it that's really good. And then of course, the other Guy Ritchie movie that he did, which I loved, was called The Wrath of Man, which is not funny at all. Very serious, but still has a lot of good. I mean, he can act. He does a good job. And
no, he can.
Yeah,
he can. And matter of fact, if you ever get a chance to see it, one of my favorite movies from Jason Statham is a movie called The Bank Job. And this was like his attempt to show you he's a serious actor.
Right.
Basically it's him and a couple guys that think they're going to break into the local bank over the weekend and steal all the money. And they're doing it because, life just stinks and they have been pushed into a corner and they are just going to try to find a way out. It is a fantastic heist movie. If you ever get a chance to watch that in streaming, I highly recommend it.
Right.
Highly.
But in the meanwhile, we'll fill all of our useless time with these popcorn movies that Jason Statham produces. I don't care which one it is. I'll watch it again. It's on. Oh, look what just popped up. Yeah. Transporter 3. I'll watch that, or Beekeeper 7. I'll watch that, Fast and Furious. What Hobbs and Shaw. I'll watch that,
That's right.
I mean, it's just, you just know you're going to get some quippy one-liners. You're going to see a lot of good action. What was the one where he put on the bicycle pedals and was in the garage? It was a fight in the garage. They tipped over a big bucket of oil and he broke the pedals off a bicycle and stuck them to his feet. And I think it was one of the transport. But it was just like, wow, that's just so much fun. I mean, this is something about a Jason Statham movie, and the guy could keep, he could just keep going. I don't know. He's got to be in his late 50s now. He's not a young
I don't know if
anymore.
he's late 50. I want to say he's about 50-ish. I want to say 50-ish.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit older, but not that much. But I mean, but I'm with you. I want to see him keep going forever and ever. Even what was the shark movie he did a few years ago? Oh gosh, the one about the
Meg?
The
Is
Meg.
that Meg?
The
Yeah,
Meg.
the
Yes,
Megadon?
the Meg.
I haven't seen that one, but I would watch it because it's got Jason Statham in it. It's just something that's fun about those movies. And I don't know. The only one that I had a hard time with, well, I didn't have a hard time with it, but it got a little weird, was the Jolt. Was it the Jolt one or the?
Oh, is that the one where he has to keep like jolting himself with electricity to keep going or something?
Yeah. Was that was okay, but all the rest of them definitely 2.5 waffle movies every one. I'll spend an afternoon on a Sunday or something eating popcorn and watching that. That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, Willie, what are we talking about next week?
Oh my gosh, next week you're talking about the Minecraft movie. Yes. The big IP movie that they hope will make $1 billion.
Trying to figure out how they would make money. What kind of storyline do we have on Minecraft? All right, well, we'll figure it out for next week. We'll see what happens. All right, Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you coming in.
I got you. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, Monday, again, Matt Burrell going to be joining us talking about the HEA board and more. It's all coming up next week. Be kind, love one another, live well. The Michael Duke Show.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.
Well,
phone's ringing.